YFZ450R versus Raptor 700R. Which of the two Yamaha Sport ATVs should you buy? Today we are out in Oregon in the dunes testing out both machines and putting them side to side to show you what exactly the differences are and which one is going to be the best fit for you. One of the biggest things that separates these two quads are the engines that power them. The Raptor 700R runs on a 686cc single overhead cam 4-stroke engine. It is water cooled. It runs through a 5-speed manual transmission with reverse, but what's powering that quad is very unique. The YFZ450R runs with a 449cc, so much smaller, dual overhead cam engine with 5 valves per cylinder, and they're titanium valves, so it's more high-tech in a lot of ways, and it's a much more rev-happy engine. Still a 5-speed manual transmission, but this engine is one of the biggest things that differentiates these two, because even though this engine is a lot smaller, a lot more zesty.
The YFZ450R is constantly tugging at the leash because it just wants to rev, and that makes it feel a little bit more like a race machine. However, because this engine is so rev happy, it doesn't really like to lug at low RPMs, which is very much unlike the Raptor 700R. The Raptor is a torque machine that is absolutely happy at any RPM, and that makes it a little bit more approachable when the going gets windy and you have to focus a lot on cornering and you might not have as much bandwidth to focus on picking the exact right gear, making the Raptor a little bit more of a simple riding machine. The 450R can definitely be a little bit buzzy when you have to stay in the throttle for a long time, but you also get rewarded for staying in the throttle. It feels good and it makes that power at high RPM, which is arguably more exciting than the torquey linear powertrain in the Raptor 700R. If you do opt for the high revving 450, note that the exhaust gets very, very hot and you notice it while you're riding. There's a lot more heat coming off of the exhaust on the 450 than there is on the 700. The Raptor powertrain also offers a reverse gear, which the 450 does not have, and that just makes it a little bit easier to get out of a tricky situation so you don't have to dismount from the ATV and pull it backwards by hand, so it's a bit more maneuverable if you do have to back up. However, if we learned anything from watching some of the pros ride out here in Oregon, it's that either one of these machines is absolutely capable of anything that you're able to push them to do, and both of them are easy to have a blast on, even if you're not as talented as some of the guys that we were watching really throw these ATVs around.
Suspension on the Raptor R is fully adjustable in the front and rear for preload, compression with high and low speed adjustments, and for rebound. Although if you get the base model Raptor 700, not the R version, you won't have all of those compression and rebound adjustments, but you will still have preload. Piggyback reservoirs are built into each section of the suspension, and you get 9.1 inches of travel front and 10.1 in the rear. The YFZ gets you the same adjustability, the same piggyback reservoirs, but you also get a Kashima coating on the front suspension. The YFZ is also overall wider, 48.8 inches wide rather than 45.5, and you have some additional travel, 9.8 in the front and 11 in the rear. In terms of size, the Raptor 700R is a little bit taller and narrower as opposed to the YFZ, which is wider and it sits a little bit lower, and the ground clearance is pretty similar on the two. The Raptor is 9.5 inches and the YFZ is 9.3. The Raptor also has a 2.9 gallon fuel tank versus 2.6 on the YFZ, and the YFZ weighs a little bit less. It's 405 pounds versus 422 pounds on the Raptor.
Since the 450 has a wider stance and it weighs a little bit less than the Raptor 700, it is easier to hook around turns and hustle through corners, but both ATVs are very capable when the going gets twisty, and both ATVs are also very capable in whoops and over bumps. If you spec the R version of the Raptor, it feels comparable. However, the Raptor offers something that the YFZ doesn't, which is a more basic model that doesn't have the completely kitted out suspension, which makes it a little bit more affordable if you want a more entry-level machine. Both of these quads have been around for a long time, and they've remained relatively unchanged, and that's partly because Yamaha is pretty much the only manufacturer still making this style of sport quad. And part of the advantage of having these two quads having been unchanged for so long is that there's a huge aftermarket community, so any way that you want to modify these two to make them fit your riding style, all of the parts are out there.
Pricing on these two is also pretty similar. The Raptor 700 without the fancy suspension starts at $8,800, but if you do want the fancy suspension, like this 700R has, then it's going to cost you $9,400, and if you want the special edition that gets you some additionally unique graphics and a GYTR front grab bar, a few extra items like that, that's going to cost you $9,999. The YFZ450R starts at $9,800 with its fancy suspension, and if you want the special edition version of this, also with unique graphics and a GYTR front grab bar, it's $10,200. So all in all, if you get either model with their adjustable suspension, they're within a couple $100s of each other. So the biggest difference between these two is the way that they feel when you get out and ride them, and also their size and their dimensions, their stature. So this, the YFZ, is definitely a more aggressive, tugging at the leash kind of machine, whereas the Raptor 700R is torquey, it's easy to get used to, and it's happy to go anywhere. So which one is best for you depends on what kind of riding you're going to be doing. Do you want to really be pinning the throttle everywhere you go? If so, YFZ is probably going to be your best bet. Or do you want to be able to hang out in any gear that you want, have power across the board, and have a little bit more of a laid-back machine to do any kind of adventuring? Then you should probably go for the Raptor. That's all for this video. Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.